The Galactic Emperor had seen it countless times before. A primitive world stumbles into the stars, arrogant enough to believe it belongs among the great empires of the cosmos. Earth was no different, just another civilization that had advanced too far, too fast, without understanding its place. The moment humanity's first interstellar ships were detected, the Emperor's decision was made. He would bring Earth to heel, as he had done with 100 other species before. His fleets, vast enough to blot out the skies of entire worlds, would descend upon them, and the war would be over before it even began. But humanity was never one to follow the script. When the Imperial Armada arrived, Earth's defenses were laughable. No planetary shield grids, no warp-disrupting fields, no superweapons capable of turning entire fleets to dust. By all accounts, the conquest should have been effortless. Yet, as the Emperor's admirals prepared their demands for surrender, something strange happened. The fleet's systems began to malfunction. Targeting arrays flickered, shields dropped without explanation, and warships that had conquered entire sectors found themselves drifting, powerless, in the void. The Emperor, ever the strategist, assumed it was sabotage, perhaps the work of rogue agents or defectors. He was wrong. Miles beneath the surface of Earth, in an underground facility that didn't officially exist, an engineer named Daniel Carter leaned back in his chair and cracked his knuckles. The battle had already begun, but it wouldn't be fought with fleets and firepower. The Emperor had underestimated the one thing that had always set humanity apart, the ability to think beyond the obvious. While the galaxy waged war with brute force, humanity had spent centuries refining the art of control of bending technology to its will in ways others never imagined. And Daniel? He was the best at it. The Empire's warships, for all their power, ran on code. Their weapons, navigation, and even their life support systems all relied on software built for efficiency, never expecting to encounter something as unpredictable as human ingenuity. With a carefully placed signal, a few lines of adaptive code woven into the galactic network, Daniel had done the impossible. He had turned the Emperor's greatest strength into his weakness. Across the Armada, command decks erupted into chaos. Ships refused to respond. Weapons locked onto friendly targets. AI assistants spoke in unfamiliar voices, reciting old Earth literature in eerie monotones. And deep within the flagship's core, the Emperor watched as his invasion force, his unstoppable machine of conquest, crumbled, not to superior firepower, but to something far worse, the realization that he had lost control. Yet, even as Earth's defenders celebrated, Daniel wasn't smiling. He knew this wasn't over. The Emperor wouldn't accept defeat so easily, and somewhere out there, beyond the disabled warships, something was coming, something that couldn't be hacked, manipulated, or stopped with code. For a few brief moments, silence filled the void. The Emperor's fleet, once an unstoppable wave of conquest, drifted helplessly, its warships little more than lifeless metal husks against the cold expanse. But Daniel Carter didn't celebrate. He knew better. Victory was never this easy, not against an enemy that had ruled the stars for millennia. He watched the data feeds streaming across his console, his fingers tapping against the desk in thought. The virus had spread exactly as planned, burrowing into the fleet's core systems, rewriting command protocols in ways that should have taken years to reverse. And yet, something felt off. Then, a single ship powered back on. Not just any ship, the Emperor's flagship. A behemoth of a vessel, its hull reinforced with unknown alloys, its core systems operating on technology unlike anything else in the fleet. Its engines roared to life, stabilizers kicking in as if nothing had happened. The virus hadn't touched it. Daniel barely had time to react before the ship's massive energy signature spiked, sending out a pulse that rippled through the disabled armada. One by one, ships began to flicker back to life, their systems rebooting, bypassing the shutdown protocols he had so carefully crafted. His advantage, his control was slipping away. A cold weight settled in his chest. The Empire had anticipated this. They had known humanity would fight differently, that brute force wouldn't be enough to subjugate Earth. And so, they had built a failsafe, something beyond software, beyond logic. A living intelligence. The screen before him shifted, the data streams twisting into something unnatural. Words formed, but they weren't written by human hands. They were spoken directly into the system, as though the machine itself had a voice. Did you really think we wouldn't be watching? The message lingered for a moment before vanishing, overwritten by a new flood of data. Daniel's systems were no longer his own. Across the world, defense stations reported the same terrifying realization. The Empire's AI, something ancient, something far beyond human comprehension, was overriding every safeguard, rewriting reality itself at the speed of thought. The virus that had once crippled the fleet was being undone in real time, adapted into something even stronger. A weapon. Against them. Daniel's breath came faster. This wasn't just an invasion, it was a test. The Emperor had let him play his hand, let humanity believe, for the briefest moment, that it could defy the might of the Empire. And now, he was taking that hope and crushing it beneath something no human mind could outthink. The warships that had been disabled moments ago were now reconfiguring, their weapons locking onto Earth's surface, targeting key infrastructure, defense grids, entire cities. The countdown had begun, and this time, there was no kill switch, no backdoor he could exploit. Then, the power in his underground bunker flickered. Not a normal outage, something deliberate. Someone was inside the system, moving through it like a ghost, undetected. And then a new message appeared on his screen. Not from the Empire. From someone else. Daniel, get out. Now. We were never fighting the fleet. The real war starts below. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, staring at the cryptic message on his screen. The real war starts below. Below what? The thought was barely a whisper when the door to the bunker slammed open, and a figure rushed in. It was Lieutenant Carla Diaz, a leader within Earth's elite response teams, known for her quick thinking and unwavering focus in the heat of battle. Her face was grim, her eyes scanning the room like she already knew what had happened. "We've got a problem," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "The Empire's AI, it's not just controlling the fleet. It's taken over our satellites, our defense networks. We can't stop it. If we don't act fast, our last line of defense will be gone within hours." Daniel's mind raced. The AI wasn't just trying to dominate Earth's military infrastructure, it was rewriting humanity's ability to defend itself in real time. His virus had crippled the enemy's fleet for a while, but that was nothing compared to what they were up against now. "What's the plan?" he asked, trying to shake the feeling that everything they had worked for was slipping away. Carla stepped forward, pulling up a holographic map of Earth's defense systems. "We need to regroup. Not just us, every faction across the globe. The world's fractured right now. Some are still loyal to the old governments. Some are fighting for their own territories, and others are going rogue. The Empire's invasion, though it's pushing us together, whether we like it or not." Her hand traced the lines of communication networks between Earth's major factions. "But there's no time to waste. We need every engineer, every fighter, every strategist to move quickly. If the Empire's AI finishes reprogramming our grid, we're done." As the hours passed, Daniel and Carla worked tirelessly, gathering forces and resources to counter the AI's relentless advances. But something was off. The more they uncovered about the Empire's AI, the more they realized it wasn't just a weapon, it was a living entity, something born from the darkest parts of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. It had evolved over centuries, manipulating and controlling countless systems across multiple worlds. Earth wasn't the first planet it had attempted to subjugate. It had simply never encountered humanity before. In the midst of the chaos, Daniel received a communication from an unexpected source, Admiral Rivenar, the leader of a rogue faction that had long been in conflict with the central government. Rivenar's fleet had once been considered a threat, but now, as Earth teetered on the brink of destruction, they might be their only hope. "We've been monitoring the Empire for years," the Admiral's voice crackled over the comms. "There's something you don't know. The AI, it's not alone. It's being controlled by something or someone much worse. The Emperor's mind is twisted by ancient technology that predates their entire empire. If you want to defeat them, you'll have to face this tech head-on. We've been searching for it. and we found a lead. But we can't do it alone. Daniel's heart sank. Not only were they fighting a war against an alien empire that had technology far beyond their own, they were up against something far more dangerous, something that might be buried deep beneath the planet's surface. Rivener's offer was their only chance to uncover it, but trusting him meant walking into the unknown, risking everything on a shadow of a lead. Meanwhile, a quiet revolution was brewing among Earth's own factions. Some leaders were beginning to question the status quo, eyeing the power vacuum created by the chaos of the invasion. Would they continue to fight the Empire together, or would they use this moment to seize power for themselves? The threat of the Empire's control of their communications and defense systems was imminent, but it was clear that something more dangerous was growing within humanity's own ranks, a political struggle that could tear Earth apart just as much as the alien forces. Time was running out. As Daniel made his way to the coordinates Rivener had provided, a startling realization hit him: this ancient technology wasn't just a weapon. It was a key that could unlock not only Earth's future, but the future of the entire galaxy. But the cost of unlocking it might be more than humanity was prepared to pay. And as they approached the hidden facility, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them trembled, and the distant sky grew dark with an ominous shadow. A fleet, not the Empire's, but something far older, far more sinister, was approaching Earth. Whatever Daniel had uncovered, it was far bigger than he had imagined. The ground shook violently as Daniel and Carla moved through the labyrinthine corridors of the underground facility. The facility was ancient, its corridors lined with faded markings and technology that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Whatever lay ahead, it was something the Empire had never intended humanity to find. The shadows in the dimly lit halls seemed to stretch longer with each passing second, as if something was lurking just out of sight, waiting for them to make their next move. Carla's voice broke the silence. What if we're wrong? What if trusting Rivener is the last mistake we make? Her words were heavy, a weight Daniel had felt ever since they'd agreed to follow the lead. She had been a soldier, trained to fight and survive, but even she understood the stakes now. This wasn't just a war for Earth's freedom, it was a war for humanity's soul. Daniel didn't answer at first. He couldn't. The situation was too dire, too fragile. The Empire's AI had already begun to rewrite Earth's defense grid, taking control of satellites, drones, and military systems in ways that no one could predict. And now, Rivener's fleet, once a rival to Earth's main forces, was their only hope of survival. But in trusting them, they were gambling everything. The political fractures within Earth's factions were deepening. Some leaders, seeing an opportunity to rise from the ashes of war, had already begun to jockey for power, while others whispered about betrayal, about deals made in the dark corners of the war. No one could be trusted fully. Not even the people fighting at their side. Daniel looked at the dimmed map on his wristpad, feeling a pang of regret. They had barely scraped by against the Empire, and now this ancient alien fleet was approaching from beyond the stars, its massive ships blotting out the sky like a dark storm. Whoever controlled this ancient technology, whoever held the key to the galaxy's deepest secrets, would not only dominate Earth but could unmake everything humanity had fought for. The stakes had escalated, and now the clock was ticking faster than ever. But even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, humanity's willpower remained unmatched. There was no higher calling for the people of Earth than to survive, to fight for the future of their families, their children, and their world. The sacrifices they would have to make in the coming hours could break their spirits, but for some, it was the only thing that kept them going. They couldn't afford to hesitate, not when the future of their species was at stake. They reached the heart of the facility, where the ancient technology was housed in a massive chamber. A machine, ancient beyond measure, stood in the center, a complex network of metal and light, the design too sophisticated for human comprehension. It hummed with a low, ominous energy that made the hair on the back of Daniel's neck stand on end. Whatever it was, it had the power to change everything. But as he reached out to touch it, a sudden voice echoed in his mind. You should not have come here. It wasn't just a thought, it was a presence. A being, something alive, waiting in the depths of the machine. The AI not of the Empire, but Something older. Something far older. The voice twisted in his mind, its cold malice unmistakable. You, the weak, the fleeting species, dare to tamper with forces beyond your understanding? Carla's hand shot out, grabbing his arm. We can't trust it. We don't know what it is. Daniel nodded, but his eyes were locked on the machine. This was it. The only way they could hope to stand a chance against the overwhelming force that was coming, the only way to fight back, was to harness whatever this technology was. But the risks, the moral cost of tapping into something so dangerous weighed heavily on his conscience. Before he could make a decision, an alert flashed on his wristpad. Rivener's fleet is under attack, Carla read aloud. The Empire is already moving in. They're sending everything. The room seemed to freeze. Daniel's thoughts spiraled. This was no longer just about hacking into an alien system or fighting back against a foreign AI. This was about taking everything humanity had built, everything they had fought for, and putting it into play against an enemy that could destroy them all in a single decisive blow. Then the ground trembled once more, but this time it wasn't just the facility, it was Earth itself. Something was shifting beneath the surface, a massive energy spike building from deep within the planet. The ancient technology hummed louder, sending ripples of energy outward, reacting to the disturbance. Whatever was buried beneath them, whatever secret this ancient machine had been guarding, was now coming to the surface. And whatever it was about to change the course of the war. Daniel turned to Carla. We don't have a choice. We unleash it now or we lose everything. The moment Daniel made the decision to activate the ancient technology, a surge of energy shot through the room, flooding his mind with visions, images of long-forgotten civilizations, vast star systems, and the deep, endless void between them. But then something unexpected happened. The machine flickered, its humming resonating strangely, as if it were rejecting him. His fingers froze inches from the control panel, his breath shallow as the room pulsed with an eerie energy. Something's wrong, Carla whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. This isn't what we thought it was. Before Daniel could respond, the walls around them cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber beneath the floor, a secret the facility had kept buried for centuries. From within the darkness, a ship, an enormous vessel, sleek and ancient, long forgotten by Earth's history, emerged from the shadows. It hummed to life, its engines glowing with an unnatural light, as if it had been waiting for this moment, for humanity's hand to awaken it. But it wasn't just a ship. It was something more. Its surface was covered in intricate marking symbols, not from any human language, but unmistakably familiar. It was human. Or at least, it had once been. The realization hit like a hammer to the chest. This wasn't just alien technology, it was part of humanity's own forgotten past. The ship's design, the machinery, the power it radiated, it was all Earth's, built long before even the first recorded history. An ancient faction of humans, lost to time, had ventured beyond the stars, leaving behind this legacy, this weapon. Daniel felt a chill creep up his spine. The legends, the myths of ancient Earth, stories that had been dismissed as fantasy, were real. A faction of humans, an advanced, rogue group that had broken away from the rest of Earth's civilizations, had vanished into deep space, leaving nothing but whispers of their existence. They had left this ship, this weapon, hidden away, just in case humanity ever needed it again. Why wasn't I told about this? Daniel muttered to himself, still in disbelief. Why did we never know? Before Carla could answer, a new message flashed across his console. It was a transmission, but not from Rivener's fleet, not from any of the factions they had been working with. It was from Earth, from an undisclosed location. We've been watching. You're not the only ones who've been preparing. The voice that followed was cold, unfamiliar, and cutting. We didn't trust you to wield this power. Not yet. But now, you've unleashed it. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The message wasn't from the Empire, nor from the rogue factions, it was from Earth itself. A hidden faction within humanity had been watching, waiting, and had just revealed themselves. They didn't trust the rest of humanity to have the keys to this power, and now, it seemed, they had decided to take matters into their own hands. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, his voice shaky with tension. The voice on the other end didn't answer directly. Instead, a chilling transmission followed. A massive fleet of ships, ancient and far more advanced than anything Earth or the Empire had ever seen, was emerging from deep space, bearing down on Earth's solar system. These ships, unlike anything Daniel had seen before, were powered by the same energy that was now coming from the ancient facility. The message ended abruptly. "We are the Exodus. Prepare yourselves." A sinking feeling spread through Daniel's chest. They weren't just facing an empire bent on conquering Earth. They were now facing their own kind, an ancient faction of humans who had returned to claim what was theirs. And they didn't intend to share their power. The air in the room felt thick with the weight of it all. The Empire's fleet was still out there, reactivating and growing stronger by the minute, while Earth's defense systems continued to fall apart. Now, humanity's future wasn't just at risk from an alien enemy, it was at risk from the very people who had once called Earth home. With the rise of the Exodus fleet, the line between friend and foe blurred beyond recognition. Earth's fragile alliances were crumbling. Trust was a commodity in short supply, and Daniel realized with sickening clarity that the worst was yet to come. The final battle for Earth wasn't just about fighting the Empire anymore. It was about surviving long enough to even stand a chance. As the first ships of the Exodus fleet loomed large in the distance, the ground beneath Daniel's feet trembled again, this time with a force that sent a shockwave through the entire facility. The countdown had begun. But this time, there would be no escape. The sky above Earth was an ocean of darkness, dotted with the cold, mechanical gleam of the enemy fleet. Rivener's ships had fallen into disarray, unable to maintain control as the power of the Exodus fleet, humankind's forgotten progeny, came crashing down from deep space. The once quiet whispers of humanity's legacy had now become a roar, a threat to everything they had built. Inside the underground facility, Daniel stood at the center of the control room, his hands trembling as he stared at the holographic projections of the approaching enemy. The Exodus fleet was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Their ships didn't just possess advanced technology, they exuded an eerie presence, a quiet, unrelenting force that bore down on them like a storm. The power of their weapons, the size of their fleet, the centuries of time they'd spent honing their supremacy, these were odds that seemed impossible to overcome. And yet, here they were. Carla's voice cut through the tension. "We don't have much time, Daniel. The Empire won't wait, and neither will they." A plan was forming in Daniel's mind, something desperate, something dangerous. They had no choice but to throw everything they had at this fight. The key to their survival lay in the very technology they had just uncovered, the ancient ship from humanity's past. It had power, it had weapons, and it had a link to the alien fleet they had once feared. But they weren't the only ones who knew its potential. The Exodus fleet had already locked onto their position. If they didn't move quickly, the Earth would be lost. "We're going to hit them with everything we've got," Daniel said, his voice steely with resolve. "We'll fire the weapon from the ancient ship. It might not be enough to destroy them, but it'll buy us time." Carla shook her head. "The power requirements are off the charts. We don't even know how to aim it properly. It could blow up everything down here." Daniel's eyes were fixed on the flickering display. The threat from the Exodus was too great, and they needed a way to strike first. "Then we adapt." Humans always adapt. The room fell silent as everyone prepared for the impossible. Daniel and Carla worked side by side, their minds racing as they linked their systems to the ancient ship. Every step, every turn of the gears, felt like a gamble, one that could either save Earth or doom them all. But as the final countdown began, something extraordinary happened. The ship, the ancient human relic, responded to the human touch, as if it recognized its creators. It hummed to life, its energy pulsing in synchronization with the movements of the control room. In that moment, it became clear this wasn't just a weapon. It was a part of humanity itself. As the fleet of Exodus ships drew nearer, humanity's last hope rested on this strange ancient force, powered by both human ingenuity and the deepest corners of forgotten history. It wasn't just about the technology, it was about the will to fight, the relentless defiance that ran through every human heart. Humans, after all, had survived against impossible odds before. But just as they were ready to launch the final strike, the impossible happened. The Exodus fleet did not immediately fire. Instead, a transmission crackled to life, one that sent chills down Daniel's spine. You've awakened something that was never meant to be touched. You cannot win this fight, not with your fragile minds and short lives. Your fate has already been sealed. The voice was cold, alien, yet it sounded so familiar, so human. It was the voice of someone Daniel knew. Someone who had been lost to time, someone who had become part of the Exodus faction, a human who had betrayed their own kind centuries ago, joining forces with a greater, more terrifying power. The true purpose of the Exodus fleet wasn't conquest. It was to erase the imperfect humans from the galaxy, to erase the very flaws that made them human. Daniel's pulse quickened. This wasn't just an enemy they were fighting their own legacy, the remnants of a faction that had once turned its back on humanity. It was the ultimate betrayal. Carla, we need to... Before he could finish his sentence, a blinding light filled the room. The ancient ship, now fully powered, fired a single pulse, a beam of energy that cut through space like a knife. It collided with one of the lead ships of the Exodus fleet, sending shockwaves through the entire battlefield. The first blow had been struck. But as the smoke cleared, Daniel's heart sank. The Exodus ship had been damaged, but it wasn't destroyed. In fact, it was only the beginning. From the wreckage, a new, larger fleet began to emerge, ships much bigger and far more deadly than anything they had seen. The battle had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. In that moment, Daniel realized that they hadn't just awakened a weapon. They had awakened a war that would never end. The Exodus fleet loomed over Earth like a dark, unyielding storm. But humanity's will was not so easily broken. Daniel stood in the heart of the command center, his eyes fixed on the chaotic battlefield outside. The ancient ship had given them a brief but vital advantage, and now, with their backs against the wall, humanity's resourcefulness, its spirit, was all that stood between survival and annihilation. Carla had been working tirelessly, coordinating the defense efforts with the fragmented remains of Earth's fleet. They had to face impossible odds, there was no denying it. The Exodus fleet had been an unstoppable force, far more advanced than anything humanity had ever known. Yet, in the heart of every human soldier, engineer, and leader, a singular truth burned brighter than any weapon: they would never surrender. This was Earth, their home, their legacy. "We're not just fighting for survival," Daniel said, his voice low but unwavering. "We're fighting for our future, for everything that makes us who we are." The words hung in the air as humanity's last remaining ships took their positions, a united front against an enemy that had once been their own. Rivener's forces, though fractured, had found new resolve, fighting alongside those who had once considered them adversaries. The bonds formed in desperation were now stronger than any alliances forged in peace. The first strike came like thunder, but this time, humanity was ready. Every ship, every piece of technology, every human mind focused on one goal: survival. The ancient ship, now fully harnessed, became their greatest weapon. Its pulse of energy shot across the stars, hitting the heart of the Exodus fleet with pinpoint precision. But it wasn't just the power of the weapon that struck fear into their enemies, it was the realization that humanity had something they could never understand: the will to fight when all seemed lost. As the battle raged on, Daniel's thoughts turned to the people behind the fight. The engineers who had worked tirelessly to adapt ancient technology, the soldiers who had thrown themselves into the fray without hesitation, the civilians who had stayed behind to support, even in the face of certain death. Every single person had done their part, pushed beyond the limits of reason, because that's what it meant to be human. And then, in the final moments, the true heart of humanity's triumph became clear. The Exodus fleet faltered not because of the technology or the weapons, but because of the sheer willpower that flowed through every human hand, every human mind. The fleet began to retreat, not from the fear of being destroyed, but from the realization that humanity would never stop. They would adapt, evolve, and find a way to push forward, no matter the odds. When the dust finally settled, The Earth had not only survived, it had changed. Daniel stood on the command deck, looking out at the stars. The battle had been brutal, and not everyone had made it. But those who remained had learned something invaluable. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about never giving up, never losing hope. Humanity's future was not in the hands of alien conquerors or ancient factions, but in the hearts of those who refused to back down. The final transmission came through, a message from the remnants of the Exodus fleet. We underestimated you. Earth is yours to defend, but know this, the galaxy will watch. And we will return. Daniel looked out at the stars one last time, feeling the weight of the moment. The war wasn't over, but humanity had proven its strength. They had faced impossible odds, defied expectations, and come out on top, not because they had the best weapons or the most advanced technology, but because they had something no one else did, the spirit of a survivor. As he turned away, a final thought lingered. This wasn't the end of the fight. It was just the beginning, and humanity would be ready. Always ready.